Here with us now is editor at The Insider, Michael Weiss. He's the author of ISIS Inside the Army of Terror. Michael, President Trump says help's on the way. He says he's canceled all meetings with Iranian officials. He's already threatened military action. You have the Iranian foreign minister saying they're ready for war. Is this all just talk? How concerned are you about this escalating rhetoric?
I don't think it's talk. I mean, this is a guy who bombed Iran when a lot of people thought he was not going to do so, and did it, by the way, engaging in a kind of game of deception with the media. The Washington Post came out with a story a few weeks ago. You know, remember that supposed rift between Trump and Netanyahu on how to handle Iran? That was all kind of just spoon-fed to reporters to distract from the fact that he was planning something kinetic. The New York Times reports that the Pentagon has offered him a much broader spectrum of options of what he could possibly do, including going after senior leadership in the IRGC or the security forces, cracking down on the protesters, cyber warfare operations, and so on and so forth. Now, one question a lot of people in military analytics circles have is there's no aircraft carrier strike group in the Gulf. So that's not necessarily, it doesn't foreclose on the option of doing something like bombing Iran. But
right, that carrier got moved to the area around Venezuela.
Exactly. But the thing that it raises is what would happen if Iran retaliates and launches a salvo of missiles, say, at Israel. So the other question, too, is will the Israelis join in this campaign if one is in the offing? But his tweet or his Truth Social post suggests strongly to me that he is going to do something kinetic. I don't think he'd be saying that if he weren't.
Well, and now you have the foreign minister there in Iran saying this, quote, "We have a large and extensive military preparedness compared to what we had during the last war. We are prepared for all options and hope Washington chooses the wise option." I think a lot of Americans are wondering, you know, should things escalate and a military confrontation take place? What are the risks when it comes to Iran's capabilities?
Well, you know, if you see what has happened in Venezuela, right? We went in, we snatched Maduro, but we struck a deal with the regime. Maduro isn't without Maduro, right? A lot of Venezuelan dissidents are saying, wait a minute, this is not democracy, this is not liberation. It seems that you did this just to basically control the country's oil. The question then, you know, rises, if we go and do something that seemingly is on the side of the protesters, but it doesn't finish the job, or it only emboldens or enables the regime to launch an even greater crackdown, claiming now that the protesters are working in league with the CIA or Mossad, which they're already saying, by the way. That's the fear. You know, where's the follow-through going to be? This is a president who ran a campaign against intervention, against regime change. He doesn't believe in, you know, spreading democracy at the end of a bayonet, right? He's against the whole kind of neocon conception of the world. However, he's not afraid of using military action. I always say that Donald Trump, he doesn't like war, but he likes acts of war. He likes to look tough. He likes to engage in sort of adventures of militarism, but it's in and out, right? Kill Soleimani, kill Baghdadi, snatch Maduro, bomb Iran's nuclear program, and then say, that's it, I'm done here. So what happens if he does something like this while you have this massive protest movement taking place? And by the way, you know, the statistics, this morning it was 2,000 per Iranian regime officials. That suggests to me that the actual figure of people killed is much higher. The New York Times just this afternoon, citing 2 more regime officials, now puts that figure at 3,000. So already, you know, the casualties, the fatalities are rising. This is a very volatile situation.
Thousands of people who've been detained, like we just heard from Philip. What about this 25% tariff threat on countries doing business with Iran that the president lobbed out there yesterday? Would that have any real impact?
I don't think so. I mean, some of those countries are already have tariffs imposed on them because of Trump's economic policies. I mean, the Russians are not going to come to Iran's defense anyway, right? I mean, they were kind of helpless in Venezuela. They didn't come to Iran's defense when Israel basically owned the skies for 12 days, you know, last year, and when the United States indeed bombed the nuclear program. Is that going to act as a deterrent? No, this regime is now in survival mode. You know, there's been some very good essays done, including by Karim Sajipour in The Atlantic, who makes a case that this could well be the death knell of the Islamic Republic. And if that's the true situation, don't expect them to go lightly. They are not going to give up. They're not going to be dissuaded by sanctions or economic terror. I mean, this is a regime that's been under sanctions for, you know, decades.
So fight for survival. We'll see how desperate they are and what that means when it comes to any kind of retaliation. Michael Weiss, thank you so much.